By choice or circumstance, at this time of our lives, a lot of us find ourselves at crossroads and ended relationships. What have we learned? And how do we move on and take those learnings with us in the next phase? That's today on our second act. Jeanne, welcome back to Second Act TV. Thank you for joining us again. Another important discussion, one of the trends that we're seeing and that we've talked about here on the show is gray divorce. This rising divorce rate amongst people in long-term marriages. How do we avoid becoming statistic? What's going on with baby boomer marriages?
It is definitely a statistic that we're pretty alarmed by as far as what happens when people divorce later in life.
Right.
And I think the thing we want to focus on is how we can create more wellness in our marriage rather than thinking in terms of what are all the problems going on and what can we do to knock them off. We want to consider what are we doing to keep our mates our friends, to keep our mates our companions, our preferred companions. What are we doing to bring ourselves closer? One of the things we found is that marriages that really go the distance, not just in terms of chronological years, but in terms of real health and well-being and has some juice into them and happiness, is that those are people who make their mate their best friend. Those are people who have some real compatibility, who enjoy being with each other. And it's not just about functioning, raising the kids, paying the bills, taking care of household affairs.
Yeah. Well, I know one of the interesting statistics or elements, I suppose, of gray divorce is that 2/3 of it are initiated by women. As in our little group, that happened because our husbands we felt weren't open to communication, didn't want to go to therapy, even though that was put on the table. What do you say to that? Do you hear that?
I hear it a lot, people saying, I have a mate, and it could be husband or wife who says, I don't want to go with you, I don't see any problem. I think women are oftentimes more the process-oriented part of the emotional relationship. They want to talk more, to work things out more, to make it better. Men might be more solution-oriented. Well, if we had sex X many times a month versus not at all, things would be a lot better.
Yeah.
So what do we do to get that conversation going? And I always tell people, if you have a mate who is just not willing to join that conversation, then you have to start it yourself. You can learn in therapy some tools for changing the conversation. You can learn how to do things differently instead of just harder. Nag is not going to make it any different. And your mate has probably tuned that out.
So change your behavior, change the pattern that they're used to.
Exactly. And when one person does that, that changes the whole equilibrium of the relationship. Change is going to occur. If you feel like, okay, I'm giving more affection here, are they going to respond or are they going to pull away? I am making plans to find other people to do things with because my mate never really wants to, instead of being home and being angry about that. Are they going to feel lonely and want to do something with me? Or are they going to just pull further away? That will give you some insight into where things are going in your marriage, and you may find things change pretty quickly.
Are there some key signs that you just know that you're heading down the wrong path and you need to do something?
Well, if there is no intimacy left, and I'm not just talking about sexual intimacy, but real sharing, touching, communicating. If your main communication is, back with each other, then you know that this is probably not going to go the distance. Once the kids are gone and the jobs are over, you're going to have to look at each other and figure out how to get along. Yeah. Better take some action now.
Great advice, Jeanne. Thank you so much for joining us. And there is hope.
There is always hope. Where there is life, there is hope.
If there's a will, there's a way. And that's what we have to remember. We have to be willing.
There are lots of things you can do about it.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.